Thank you, everyone. Leo invited me here to talk about immigration. So, all over the world, we know that immigrants are a common group to discriminate against through policy and personal attacks. Politicians find it too easy to go after immigrants using people's economic anxieties and existing prejudices. They fan the flames of this fear to gain support for their own policies and keep people divided while they push regressive politics and seek to expand state power and surveillance. Whether it's Koreans in Japan, Nicaraguans in Costa Rica, or Mexicans in the United States, these prejudices will be tough for us to change, especially when our policies and our common talking points around this issue reflects our distrust of immigrants. The clearest example of this is President Trump. Before announcing his candidacy, Donald Trump began his journey into national politics by calling President Obama a Kenyan immigrant Muslim. At his campaign launch event, he said that Mexican immigrants were guilty of bringing nothing but drugs, crime, and sexual assault to the United States. He openly campaigned on banning all Muslim immigrants from the United States. While most United States politicians would never state their bigotry so openly, such statements never harm Trump's chance of winning. And in a lot of ways you could say that these kinds of statements show that he knew his constituency, the Republican base, much better than all the establishment Republicans who are running. Unfortunately, this tactic has also been very effective in recent elections in places like France and Germany. Today in the United States, we're seeing the current administration putting these awful anti-immigrant ideas into practice in horrifying ways. The Department of Homeland Security recently announced that it's going to be monitoring the social media accounts of all U.S. immigrants. You have to register with them, give all of your information, and they go through your accounts. The Trump administration recently announced the third version of their travel ban for people from Muslim-majority countries. A special hotline known as Voice was created to have citizens report people who they suspect of being undocumented immigrants. Attorney General Jeff Sessions and President Trump have repeatedly referred to law and order, which many of us know is a code for waging a war on black and brown bodies and incarcerating us. While our Constitution and Bill of Rights guarantee certain freedoms and rights, there are a lot of people in the United States who think that those rights only extend to citizens, or that people who weren't born in the United States just don't deserve those rights. And it's through this kind of nationalism that the anti-immigrant sentiment really gets to grow, that you get the idea that we were born here so we deserve this and they don't. And it also allows you to dehumanize immigrants and take away their rights further with things such as I referred to with the Department of Homeland Security having no respect for the privacy of immigrants and looking through all their social media accounts. And while we know that conservatives are often guilty of having an anti-immigrant sentiment, we can't forget the role that liberals have played in this as well. For example, Bill Clinton in 1996 passed a bill that further criminalized undocumented immigrants and continued a narrative that they're people who are not deserving of a place in this country, and they're people that we should seek to persecute rather than look to build forward with. Also, while many people believe that Trump's administration is currently going to set a record pace in terms of deportations, that record has already been set by the previous administration, the Obama administration. Well, it's true that, part of this was because they changed the definition of what deportations are. He still deported so many people that the Trump administration thus far has not been able to keep up with his early deportations. And the other thing that Trump administration recently did is they talked about repealing DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. This was a great step for people who were brought to this country without documents when they were children. 800,000 people got, you know, they didn't have to fear being deported constantly. They had to renew every 2 years, but the Trump administration is currently using that as a political bargaining chip to try and gain more border patrols, or even worse, they're trying to half all legal immigration to the United States. And this is a clear demonstration of the white supremacist ideology that the administration has. They want to restrict legal immigration to the United States because they want to keep the United States as wide as possible. And immigrants coming to the United States is one of the main demographic factors that are going to make the United States majority minority by 2054. And we know that this instills a lot of fear in a lot of white people because they're used to being the majority and they're afraid of what's going to happen when the tables turn. White supremacy is not going to magically end when people of color are the majority in the United States, but it still drives them crazy to think that we might one day be the majority. So these are the kinds of policies that we all have to stand up and fight against. We also have to examine the role that the war on immigrants has and its relation to mass incarceration in the United States. Just as other areas of the criminal justice system, Black immigrants are disproportionately affected by the immigration system. According to the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, Black immigrants are 7% of the immigrant population, but make up 21% of all immigrants who are deported for criminal cases. Furthermore, they're 3 times as likely to be held while their cases are being processed. And once again, they're 7% of the population, but 11% of all immigrant deportations. It's ridiculous that the people in power are using the Dreamers as a political bargaining chip. We have had such a legacy of being involved in other countries and creating refugees in other places through our imperialism, our policies that ruin things for people in other places. And then when other people seek to escape poverty, domestic violence, persecution, we try to turn them away and demonize them, or have their neighbors report them to Trump's secret hotline voice. What kind of society are we trying to set up? This is like a clear shift towards authoritarianism, where you have an environment where you try to say, oh, I think this person might be undocumented. Most of the people who call the ICE hotline don't say it in as nice terms. It's imperative that we change our policies and our narratives to fit the actual lived experience of immigrants. There are legitimate and terrifying reasons why they would come here, like I just stated. They want a better life here, and they deserve the chance, because even if they're not contributing economically, which is the narrative that we often hear from people on the left and liberals, if they're not contributing economically, they're still humans, they want dignity, they want the chance to have life, liberty, happiness. And as with any other human being, we have to support them, show solidarity, fight with them, because their struggle is our struggle. Immigrants are not helpless either. There are many organizations that help out with immigration issues, such as the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, the organization I'm involved in, Democratic Socialists of America. Recently, after the news about DACA was announced, we organized rallies to protest the decision. We helped raise money to have the fee waived. It's about $500 that you have to pay to renew the DACA, and it was due, I think, October 5th. The deadline just passed, and I think a fourth of the people who were registered and were supposed to renew didn't actually renew, but we helped raise funds for that. We ran clinics to help mail out letters by the deadline. So these are the kinds of things that we can do today to ensure that we're looking out for immigrants, because we don't want to wait for the Trump administration to come for us and look out and attack our group to show solidarity for people. We have to look out for them so that they will look out for us. It's the right thing to do. It's also important to center the voices of the immigrants themselves, because as people who are directly affected by these issues, they understand to a great degree how they affect their communities and what the best kinds of solutions would be. We cannot claim to be a truly democratic society as long as we're excluding such a large proportion of our population, 40 million people, from what it means to be an American and what it means to be part of our society. If we're truly going to stand for democracy and having an open society, we have to have them involved and dedicate ourselves to showing them the same kind of dignity and respect that we would want for ourselves, and respecting their existence. All right, thank you.